Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This evening, we've got this 2005 Kawasaki Vulcan Nomad in the shop to do a fuel level sensor and an oil change, but I'm not going to film that. But the fuel level sensor, I guess, is pretty common on these bikes. They read empty all the time. Now on this particular model, from what I've researched, it goes down to 1 bar. And even when it's bone dry on fumes, that bar still stays there. So it's not as if the bar disappears when you have 0. It goes down to the lowest bar. It also has a low fuel light, and that is functioning correctly. So when the tank's full, the light's off, and then it goes down, 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 and then the light comes on. But the fuel gauge never reads full. It never moves. So we do have a new genuine Kawasaki fuel level sensor for it. I mean, you can't see squat when it's in a bag, but here we go. These mount underneath the tank, like that's such a orientation, and that's your float there. So what I did is I went through the diagnostics on this end, on that sensor, and it's supposed to be, I forget the numbers, like 5 ohms or something like that. I forget because it's been a little bit, but 5 ohms when it's empty, and like 200 ohms. I forget the numbers. Honestly, I just don't quote me on the numbers, but it should be 1 resistance here across the 2 terminals and 1 resistance when it's full, and it is reading open. It's reading absolutely open, so it's like it's as if one of these wires is broken right off. It is reading open. There's no connection, no continuity anywhere. So anyways, enough of my preamble. Let's hit the intro and we'll jump into this. Well, I figured I'd do a quick demo to see how far off my numbers were. This is the new sensor. It's in the vise. I've got my multimeter set on ohms. Can you see it? Oh, that's a glare. Oh, we'll try there. Anyways. So there's 3 wires in here. One's blue, one's black with a yellow stripe, and one is white with a yellow stripe. So the black with the yellow stripe is your ground, and that is this. It's grounded to the chassis of the sensor as well. So I'm just going to stick this in the white wire, and that should be the fuel level sensor. So the float is all the way down, so that would be an empty position. And let's see what we're reading. Let her calm down there. So 216.5 ohms-ish. That's going to be on an empty tank. And as I raise this float off camera, goes down to about 4.2, 4.9 ohms. So this one is functioning properly. There you go. That's the way that works. So you can check these on the motorcycle. What you, the test procedure is put your meter on ohms, hook 1 terminal into the black wire with the yellow stripe, that's your ground, and the other lead goes into the white wire, and you should read somewhere between 5 and 216 ohms, somewhere in there. This one, like I said, when I probed these terminals on the one on the bike, it was open, so it basically would read this, OFL. So it's out, it's completely open. There's no connection. There's a broken wire somewhere. So, I mean, I went a little bit further than just saying, hey, there's no sensor working. What I did was I also checked continuity between this end of the wire on the harness and this end of the wire at the sensor. And each one of these 3 wires had continuity to these 3. So the ground and this, I believe that's a light. I don't remember. But anyways, the wires were good from this connector to that connector. So I knew it wasn't just a broken wire, because that's a lot easier to fix than pulling a tank off and changing this out. So that's where we're at with that. It's a quick diagnosis, how to do it. So on this particular bike, this flavor of motorcycle, I'll get you to zoom back out. Whoa, that's not out. I always do it backwards. So this particular bike, there's 1 bolt back here holding the passenger pillion on. There's 1 bolt here holding the rider's saddle on. Look at me using the proper terms. They're not seats. It's a pillion and a saddle. We got a couple of bolts under here look like 12 M&Ms, but we got to get the console off the top of this tank anyways. It's 3 screws, wiring for the gauge cluster, and the wiring for the signal switch, or the ignition switch. Get those 3 Allen screws out of there, and then we'll pull the console off and get the tank off. Okay, so there was the 2 bolts at the back of the tank. There was the fuel line quick connect here. 1 vent tube here went in the back of the tank at the bottom. Vent tube at the front into the bottom of the tank. And 1 more bolt up the front, 12mm bolt. Tank's off, it's on the floor, on its side, resting on some nice, beautiful, soft towels. I think they're Egyptian cotton, actually. Probably not. Anyway, there we are. Tank is off. And that's when it focuses. There you go. So that square piece right there is what we're changing. Might not be a very good angle for you guys, but it is what it is. It's the room I got. 8mm. And there was the 2 connectors back here. 1 for the fuel level sensor, 1 for the fuel pump itself. So these got little metal tabs. Just gently move them enough to get the wiring harness out. Do not reef on these things. You got to put them back there. You don't want them to break off. So it's just these. There we go. The harness is now free. Let me grab my 8mm. I'll get these whipped out. The tank is very, very low. When I first brought the bike, when I diagnosed this, there was a lot of fuel in it. So I ordered the part, waited for it to come in, and then rode it a little bit and got most of the fuel out of it for me. That's good. This here is your fuel pump, electric fuel pump. One, 2, 3, 4. We also got a new gasket for this. You know what? It's got some rust on it. It's rusty. Oh, there's your problem. The wire's broken off right there. That would make it go open. Found the problem. Yep. I just got a matter of wiggling it, turning it a certain direction to get that float out of there. It's a tight squeeze. Here we go. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. The float is still on there. Sometimes they break off, fall off. Anyway, there's a level sensor. And that wire's not bad. Well, it's on there. This is the problem right here. See if I can get you a little closer and keep focus. So that wire is actually detached. Well, there's your problem. There's our old gasket. Got a new gasket figured out right here for it. Another genuine Kawasaki part. So there's no coming back from that sensor. That's broken off right down inside the terminals. I won't be able to do anything with that. I was wondering if maybe when I pulled it out, if it was just a broken wire, then I could maybe fix it for him and see if he can just, use it. Let's send this other one back, but that's not going to be the case this time. Now we'll get our new gasket fitted. Looks like the holes only line up one way. That's brilliant. And that's the way they line up. So let's get that back in there. Get in there. Start all these. Make sure that they're started well. I have it in there backwards. I might, because it ain't lining up. I think, I'm pretty sure it was that way. Yes, it was, because I remember the ground being at the back. Somebody's not doing their job right. You guys are supposed to remind me of these things. That's better. That's more better. There's 3. There's 4. So that will ensure that the level sensor goes in the correct orientation. Otherwise the float might interfere with the curve in the tank or the hump where it goes over the backbone. I'm not going to cram those things down with a gun. I will use a hand ratchet for that. Get the wiring rerouted right alongside the fuel pump wire. Gentle little push, make sure those clips still retain everything. I'm going to grab a deep socket and put those on by hand. Okay, well, without putting the seats back on, saddle and pillion. Just thought I'd take it for a walk here. See the things you got to disconnect. So there is a quick coupler right here that's dark, but it's a quick coupler. You squeeze the sides and it pops off the fuel pump. That's your main fuel feed to your ejector system. There's the 2 bolts here, here, and here for the back of the tank. This is your fuel gauge connector. That is the fuel pump connector. You have to remove both of these connectors and they'll come off with the tank. On the other side over here underneath is one vent line with rubber hose. And up at the front, under here is another vent line. You take these 2 Allen screws out, this Allen screw out, this whole chrome piece comes off. There's 2 connectors under here to power the gauges and give the information it requires. And underneath that is one more 12mm bolt, same as the back ones. And the tank comes off. Pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward. Now I did turn it on. Let's turn it on. It reset everything. So I believe it was 238 kilometers on the odometer, but it did reset everything. It is still reading 1 bar, but there's very, very little fuel in the tank. Probably not enough to turn the low fuel light on, but enough that it doesn't read on here. So initially I turned it on, it was reading the same. So I came back to this connector and I unplugged it here and I ran my meter across it. It's reading 216 ohms. So it's empty. The float is all the way down. It's just not enough to move the gauge. But that's okay. That's okay. Anyways, thanks for joining me, guys, on this one. 2005 Kawasaki Nomad Vulcan fuel level sensor replacement. I'm going to throw the seating devices back on and do an oil change on it, but we're going to close the video here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you do subscribe, click that bell icon. It'll let you know when I upload new stuff. Till the next one, take care.